up, kinda crew? Who my mom make this video for you to watch and learn.
Hi guys, in this video, finally, we will be talking about the very last topic of Module 1, Lesson 1, and that is global market or market globalism. So the objectives for this lesson are the following. Of course, at the end of this lesson, we are expected to be able to state the definition of ideology and the definition of market globalism, and also the ideology of market globalism, as well as enumerate its three historical elements and functions. Apologies for the typological error. And the second is to explain what's the very essence of market globalism, and also to know what and how economic system works, and how it affects the entire global countries. And lastly is to assess the applicability of the core claims of the market globalism as discernible in the present Philippine society. Okay, so of course, first things first, we have to define what market globalism is. So basically, market globalism is the dominant ideology of our time, since for the past years, globalization's study focused on globalization as part of the economic innovations carried out by the people in the course of history. Yet, one has to note that globalization's development also involves cultural and political spheres. So the global circulation of ideas across the national territories manifests that globalization is not only about economics, but it includes almost all aspects of our human lives. And so ideologies show a very clear vision of the world, not only as it is, but also what it ought to be. So what then is ideology? Now, according to Steger 2014, he defines ideology as a system of wide shared ideas, patterns, beliefs, and including the guiding norms and values, and also the ideals that are accepted as truths by a certain group of people. And I think the best example for that one is the ideology of communism espoused by the ever famous Karl Marx. So based on this ideology, Karl Marx states these following principles. Okay, first is that there should be a classless society. And second, there should be a destruction of private property to attain a classless society. And in this case, of course, the state owns everything. So there should be a dictatorship of the working class, and each according to ability, each according to the needs. Now, because we are living in a democratic country, so basically we are going to contradict this ideology, because the ideology of democracy is based on each person's enjoyment of freedom, and also the majority should rule. So the thing is that people will always disagree what is the best ideology there is in the world today. This is actually not a surprise, because people are rational beings and we see things in a different ways. However, according to French philosopher Paul Ricoeur, he said that ideologies actually distort, legitimize, and integrate people or even the world. So now let us move forward and talk about the overview of the world economy. So basically, guys, after the strong growth on 2017 and early 2019, global economy activity slowed notably in the second half of that year, and it is reflecting a confluence of factors affecting a major economy. So, of course, China being one of the major company, China's growth declined following a combination of the needed regulatory tightening to rein in shadow banking and on increases in trade tensions with the United States. So also in another part, the Euro area economy lost more momentum than expected as consumer and business confidence weakened by weekend, and also car production in Germany was disrupted by the introduction of new emission standards. So as globalization occurs, because it's a continuous process, a lot would continue to change. Hence, given we have this new emission standards, so the investments dropped in Italy as sovereign spreads widened and external demand, especially from emerging Asia, also softened. And elsewhere in other part of the world, specifically in Japan, Japan was also hurt badly by the natural disasters. They were having earthquakes and also which basically followed by the tsunami, and there was also this explosion in their very huge factory. I forgot the very exact name. So there are basically a lot of factors that would threaten our economy and affect our global market. So there. Next. In having this factors affecting the global market, trade tensions basically increased and then took a toll on human business confidence. And so financial market sentiments worsened, with financial conditions tightening for a very vulnerable emerging markets in the spring of 2018. So in advanced economies later in that year 2018, weighing on the global demand, the conditions have eased, however, in 2019, as the U.S. Federal Reserve signaled a more accommodative, oh my God, why is sorry, accommodative monetary policy there, accommodative monetary policy stance, and also markets became more optimistic about the US-China trade deal, but they remain slightly more restrictive than in the fall during that year. So now let's move to another important topic, which is, of course, in relevance to the global market, and that is the economic system. So basically, economic system is a means of a means by which societies or governments organize and distributes the available resources, also the available services and goods across the geographic region or country. So economic system basically regulate the factors of production which includes the land and the capital and also the labor market. So when we say labor market, guys, labor market is actually the place where the supply and the demand for jobs meet with the workers or labor providing these services that employed demand, and also with the physical resources. So an economic system encompasses actually a lot of institutions. It includes a lot of agencies, entities, and it involves a major process of decision making, as well as patterns of consumptions that comprise the economic structure of a given community or of a specific country. So when we say economic system, there are basically different kinds. And as you can see here in our slide, this is the first type of an economic system, which is capitalism or market economy. So when we say capitalism, it is basically more in a free market economy. Firms and households act in self-interest to determine how resources get allocated and what goods get produced and who buys the goods. So this is opposite to how a command economy works, where the central government gets to keep the profit. So in this type of economic system, there is no government intervention in a pure market economy. It is basically what we so-called as the laissez-faire, which is actually free for all. Like everyone is free to do whatever they want. So, however, no truly free market economy exists in the world. For example, while in America is a capitalist nation, the government still regulates or attempts to control fair trade, also the government programs, and they also regulates honest businesses and of course monopolies. Now, in this type of economy, there is a separation of the government and the market. So this separation prevents the government from becoming too powerful and also keeps their interest aligned that of the markets. So of course, in every system, or in every type of economic system, and in general, in everything, there is always highlights and the bad side. So there's advantages and there's disadvantages. So when we say capitalism, the advantages are the following. Consumers pay. Consumers pay the highest price that they want to, and businesses only produce profitable goods and services. So there is a lot of incentive for entrepreneurship. Now, this competition for resources leads to the most efficient use of the factors of production, since businesses are very competitive, and also businesses invest heavily in research and development. So there is an incentive for constant innovation as companies compete to provide better products and also better services for all their consumers. Now, the downside are that due to fiercely competitive nature of free market, business will not care for the disadvantaged, like the elderly, the handicaps, or disabled. So this lack of focus on societal benefit leads to higher income inequality, because of course they will, if you're the company, you would basically be getting those employees who are very much skilled and who could benefit you a lot through providing a way better service as compared to the elderly and to those who are disabled. So since the market is driven solely by self-interest, okay, economic needs have a priority over social and human needs, like providing healthcare for the poor. And also, consumers can also be exploited by the monopolies. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of capitalism. Now, let us move forward to another type of economic system, which is the socialism or the command economy. Basically, in a command economic system, guys, a large part of the economic system is controlled by a centralized power. So this is basically managed or administered by the government. So the best example is in the USSR, wherein most decisions were made by the central government. So this type of economy was the core of the communist philosophy. So since the government is such a central feature of the economy, it is often involved in everything from planning to redistributing resources. And so a command economy is capable of creating a healthy supply of its resources, and also it rewards people with affordable prices. And this capability also means that the government usually owns all the critical industries like the utilities, aviation, and the railroads. So the same with the capitalist or capitalism rather, this type also has its own advantages and disadvantages. So the following are the advantages if executed correctly. Okay, so let us be very sure. I mean, let us emphasize this one. If executed correctly, the government can mobilize resources on a massive scale. So this mobility can provide jobs for almost all of the citizens. So the government can focus on the good of society rather than an individual. And this focus could lead to a more efficient use of the resources. However, there is also the disadvantages. So first is that it is hard for central planners to provide for everyone's needs. So this challenge forces on the government to ration because it cannot calculate demand since it sets price. And also there is lack of innovation since there is no need to take any risk because workers are what? No, the government are just basically very complacent, and also the workers are forced to pursue jobs the government deems fit. So there is less freedom from for the workers because the government is controlling them. Okay, now last type of economic system is what we so call as mixed economy. Now, a mixed economy is a combination of different types of economic systems. So this economic system is a cross between the market economy and also the commodity economy. And in the most common types of mixed economies, the market is more or less free of government ownership, except for a very few key areas, like, of course, the transportation and other sensitive industries like the defense and also the railroads. So, however, the government is also usually involved in regulations of private businesses. So the idea behind the mixed economy was to use the best of both worlds, incorporate policies that are socialist and capitalist. So to a certain extent, most countries have mixed economic system. For example, India, France, and of course, our own government, the Philippines. So we are practicing the mixed economy. And of course, again, there will always be the advantages and disadvantages. Now, in the mixed economy, there are a lot of advantages. Okay, the following are, there is less government intervention than a command economy. So this results in private business that can run more efficiently and cut costs down cut costs than a government entity might. So also, the government can intervene to correct failures. For example, most governments will come in and break up large companies if they abuse the monopoly, or there is this monopoly of power. And another example could be the taxation of the harmful products like the cigarettes, the alcohol, or the liquors. Okay, these are harmful to our health, and so they have to be taxed in a higher way, so that there will be regulation, and people will try to limit its usage, if not basically discourage them because of the high price also. Now, governments also can create safety net programs like healthcare or social security. And in a mixed economy, governments can use taxation policies to redistribute income and reduce inequality. But regardless of how good it is, how lots of advantages there are, there will always be the disadvantages. And these are the following. So there are criticisms from both sides arguing that sometimes there is too much government interventions and sometimes there isn't enough. So a common problem is that the state-run industries are often subsidized by the government and run into large-scale of debts because they are uncompetitive, or also because they are being corrupted. Okay, knowing for a fact, here in our country, we practice the mixed economy, and I think we are all seeing the effects of that one, where our government is embezzling the funds of our government to benefit the government officials. So just saying, guys, that is why it is very important for us to make sure that this coming election, we have to choose the rightful president who will lead our country for 6 years. Okay, that's a bit of a segue, but it is very important. And so I have to say it. Let us be very mindful as to who we are voting for. Now, moving forward, let us talk about the World Bank's 4-category system. According to World Bank, there are 4 income groups, and these are the low, and then lower middle, and also the upper middle, and then the high income countries. And the classifications are actually updated each year and on July 1, and are based on the gross national income per capita in the current USD using the Atlas method of exchange rates of the previous year. In this case here, this is based on last 2020. Okay, so the classification of basically changes for 2 reasons. The first reason is that in each country, factors such as economic growth and inflation, and also exchange rates, and including the population growth, influence the GNI, or the gross national income per capita. So revisions to the national accounts methods and data can also have an influence in specific cases. And second is that to keep income classification thresholds fixed in a real term, so they are adjusted annually for inflation. And so the special drawings rights, the special drawing rights deflator is used, which is a weighted average of the gross domestic product deflators of China, Japan, United Kingdom, and United States, and also some Euro areas. So basically, these are the hegemonic countries we are talking about. So this year, the thresholds move up in line with this inflation measure, and the new thresholds for the gross national income per capita in the current United States dollar based on the Atlas method are as follows. So here, guys, in this table, as you can see, Uh, about okay, here in this table, listed are the 10 economies that are moving to a different category. And it is important to emphasize here also that the World Bank incomes classification use the GNI, or the gross national capital of gross national income rather of the previous year, which is 2019 in this case. Thus, the GNI numbers that are used for this year, or the year 2020, is the year's classification do not yet reflect the impact of COVID-19. Okay, so the national account revisions here have played a significant role in the upward revision for Benin, Nauru, Tanzania, and also for Sudan. The GNI series for 2009 to 2018 has been revised, and it revised down to 840 US dollar from the previously published figure, which was 1,560 US dollar, and that is listed in this table. So Algeria, Indonesia, also Mauritius and Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Romania were very close to the respective thresholds last year, which is specifically pertaining to the year 2019. So in here is the first classification or category rather, according to the World Bank, which is the low-income countries. So according to World Bank, the low-income countries have GNP per capita of less than $766. The characteristics shared by countries at its income level are that there is limited industrialization and a high percentage of population engaged in agriculture and subsistence farming. And also there's high birth rates, low literacy rates, heavy reliance on foreign aid, and political instability and unrest. So there's a lot of chaos going on in that particular place. So although there are 50% of the world's population which is included in this economic category, many low-income countries represent limited markets for products, and many low-income countries have such serious economic, social, political problem that they represent very limited opportunities for investments and operations. So others were once growing relatively stable countries that have become divided by political struggles. So there is this political instability and unrest. So even if they were already about to perform better when it comes to the economy, but that political unrest would kind of hamper their progress. So there. Now let's move forward to the next one, and this category is what we call as the low middle income countries. So according to World Bank, the low middle income countries, sometimes these are countries that can be assigned to the lower income and also lower middle income categories, are known collectively as less developed countries, or LDCs. Now, the LDCs in the lower middle income category have a major competitive advantage in mature, standardized, labor-intensive industries such as toy making and textiles. So that is their advantage. And now let's talk about the next category, and that is the upper middle income countries. Now, these countries are also known as the industrializing or developing countries, with the GNP per capita ranging from 3,036 to 9,385 US dollars in these countries. And the percentage of the population engaged in agriculture actually drops sharply as people move to the industrial sector and the degree of the urbanization increases. And the next category is the high income countries. So in high income countries, they are also known as advanced, developed, industrialized, or post-industrialized countries, and they have GNP per capita above 9,386 US dollars, with exemption of a few oil-rich countries. Now, the countries in this category reach their present income levels through a process of sustained economic growth. So there are actually 20 countries with large GDP per capita in 2017. And you know, GDP is a strong indicator of a country's economic performance. Also, it's a strength. So it is measured by the added value of the final goods and service produced, and also by the manufactured products by that particular country. So those are the four category of countries according to World Bank based on its economic status, or based on its economic development. Okay, so now we will move forward to another topic, and now let us tackle the 6 core claims of globalization. Okay, so the first claim is that globalization is about liberalization and global integration of markets, not an ideology. So, in other words, the concrete outcomes of market interactions are neither intended nor foreseen, but are the result of the workings of what Adam Smith famously called as the invisible hands. Yet, are you familiar with the invisible hands by Adam Smith? Okay, it's like there is this invisible hands that are basically controlling or manipulating or making the system work of a particular community. And there's more to that one. So I encourage you to read. It's a very interesting principle of Adam Smith, the invisible hand. So again, globalization is about liberalization and global integration of markets, not an ideology, because accordingly, this is the concrete outcomes of market interactions, are neither intended nor foreseen, but are the result of Adam Smith's famously called as the invisible hands. Yet, the globalists usually convey the assertions that globalization is actually an integration of markets in the form of moral imperatives. So the concept of free trade actually arose a moral principle even before it became a pillar of economies, that is according to George Bush. It's very good, no? According to George Bush again, the concept of free trade arose as a moral principle even before it became a pillar of economies. So that's the first thing. Let us now talk about the second one, which is globalization is inevitable and irresistible. So despite the presupposition that the market is based on the independent and intersubjective decisions of independent and individual rational actors within a liberally organized democratic system, it is still spoken of within a Marxist and Hegelian determinism. So by seeing globalization as a natural, historical, local of the universe organization principles, it is passively accepted yet actively pursued. So according to President Clinton on US foreign policy, he once said, "Today, we must embrace the inexorable logic of globalization that everything from the strength of our economy to the safety of our cities to the health of our people depends on events not only within our borders but halfway halfway far world away. Okay, so with that, it is basically the reason why things today are happening in our country. So as you can see, regardless of the distance that we have, we are still greatly affected by the war between Russia and Ukraine. Why or how? Well, the prices of the gas is too high these days, if you notice, and when the prices of the gas increases, hence it will put us right away with this economic crisis because of its domino effects. Now, when the prices of the prices of other goods and commodities will automatically rise as well, since its transportation to the market uses gas. So that would be an additional price for them to add on, which will be passed on to the consumer. So we are submerged in the I'm sorry guys, we are submerged into this crisis because we are greatly affected, and that's one of the fallback of the effect of globalization. So let's move forward to another claim, and that is nobody's in charge of globalization. So according to Robert Holmes, he's Hormats rather, he said, and I quote, that the great beauty of globalization is that it is not controlled by any individual, any government, any institution. So the meetings and the groups and the foundations that all work on spreading new liberal principles and, of course, the New World Order principles have been deeply rooted in ancient history. So basically, globalization is really not controlled by any individual or by just one government or by just one institution. So because it started way back then, and we are just actually enjoying and savoring the process of globalization, which have started way back up to this very present time. Okay, so the next one is that globalization benefits everyone. So of course, we will agree on this one. We will strongly agree on this one because the G7 summit of 1996, speaking in a Jacobian spirit, says that economic growth and progress in today's interdependent world is bound up with the process of globalization. Okay, so in this case, basically, globalization provides great opportunities for the future, not only for our country, not just for one country, but for all other countries in the entire world. So in many positive aspects includes an unprecedented expansion of investments and trade. Also, the opening up to the international trade of the world's most populous regions and opportunities for more developing countries to improve their standards of living. And there's also the increasing rapid dissemination of information. Of course, there is this technological innovation and as well as the proliferation of skilled jobs. So these characteristics of globalization have led to a considerable expansion of wealth and prosperity in the world. Hence, we are convinced that the process of globalization is definitely ultimately a source of hope for a greater future. Now, the next one is that globalization furthers the spread of democracy in the world. So how does it furthers the spread of democracy in the world? So the globalist claim is that It is anchored in the neoliberal assertion that freedom, free markets, free trade, and democracy are synonymous terms. So they are of equal value. This focus on the act of voting, in which equality prevails on only in the formal sense, and it helps to obscure the conditions of inequality that is actually reflected in the existing asymmetrical power relations in our society. And yeah, it do make sense that globalization furthers the spread of democracy in the world. And another is that yeah, this is the person who caught that one. Okay, so he said that this claim links the globalization and market to the adjacent concept of democracy, which also plays a significant role liberalism, conservatism, and socialism. So this guy here is Friden, and he coined the word Thatcherism. So globalists tends to treat freedom, free markets, and trade and democracy as synonymous terms. So there. Now, let's proceed to another claim, and that it says globalization requires war on terror. And I think we are seeing this in our very own eyes as of the moment, due to the fact that Russia and Ukraine are at war with each other. And also, it has greatly affected us, even if we are distant from them. So, according to Daniel Griswold, who is an associate director of the Cato Institute, that is a major DC5 think tank, he said, an essential part of any plan to establish freedom in Iraq should be a commitment to a free market and the institution that support it, including a commitment to free trade. So the technology dynamism and openness for our own market help us this war to it will basically open up our market and at the same time help us to win this war. And okay, he was actually referring to the war in Iraq way back then, and he said if spread to Iraq could help us win the peace. So Robert Kaplan reminds his readers, also he's a writer, that the purpose of the US power is not the power itself. It is fundamentally liberal purpose of sustaining the key characteristics of an orderly world. So those characteristics include the basic political stability, the idea of liberty, pragmatically conceived, and respect for prosperity, and also economic freedom and representative government. So at this moment in time, it is American power and also American power only. And that is why they can serve as an organizing principle for the worldwide expansion of the liberal civil society. Why is that so? That is because the United States of America is a very it's a hegemonic country, and it's a very influential country. In fact, it dictates most of the United Nations principles and decisions, and it is also their say to sanction Russia. But you know, Russia having Putin, who is a very stubborn and proud and strong and tough and mighty president, they wouldn't care about the sanction. Hence, it happens. This is what is happening right now. So, however, guys, we'll be talking a lot more of these current issues as we go along with our discussions, and we will be talking them in a very detailed manner so that we will be able to thoroughly have a strong sense of understanding of what is actually happening around the world as part of globalization. Okay, so moving on, we will now talk about another topic, and that is the international economic environment. So what is the international economic environment? So Basically one system all over the world which only used for the trade how would I say, for the trade internationally among the developed and also the developing countries, the environment in different countries. So, sorry, excuse me, guys. As I was saying, the international economic environment is a one system all over, which only used for the trade internationally among the developed and also the developing countries. The environment in a different countries with conditions similar to the home environment of the institutions, which of course influencing decision making on capabilities and also on the uses of the resources. So it can be described as the global factors that are outside the control of individual organizations, but that can affect the way that businesses operate. And these factors include unemployment rates, inflation rates, and even the labor costs. So the following are the terms of economic environment. So the terms of economic environment refers to all external economic factors that basically influence buying habits of consumers and also businesses, and therefore affect the performance of a company. So these factors, guys, are often beyond a company's control and maybe either large scale or macro, or even also in a small scale or micro. So these are the following: the law of one's price and the sustainability of ecosystem on which the global economy depends must be guaranteed, and also the economic partners must be satisfied that the basis of exchange is equitable, and also relationships that are unequal and are based on dominance of one kind or another are not a sound and durable basis for interdependence. So when we say economic environment, it also has its elements. So these are the elements of economic environment. First is the economic condition, which of course talks about economic policies of the business unit, which are largely affected by the economic conditions of an economy. And any improvement in the economic conditions, such as the standard of living and purchasing power of public and the demand and supply and also distribution of income and what have you, largely affects the size of the market. And second element is the business cycle. A business cycle is actually another economic condition that is very important for a business. So business cycle has 6 different stages, and these are expansion, peak, decline, and recession. Also, we have depression and throw, and then recovery. Okay, so we will discuss one by one these different 6 cycles. First is expansion. So when we say expansion, this is the first stage. And when expansion occurs, this is an increased employment income, also increase in production, and also increase in sales. So people generally pay their debts on income. And so the economy has a steady flow in money and supply, and also investment is booming. Now, the second is peak. Now, this being the second stage, what happens here is that the economy hits its snag. So having reached the maximum level of growth, prices hit their highest level, and also economic indicators stop growing. So in this stage, many people start to restructure as the economy's growth starts to reverse. And the third is recession. So These are periods of contraction. So during recession, unemployment rises, and also there is production, how would I say, a slowdown of the production, and also the sales basically starts to drop because of the decline in the demand, and of course the income becomes stagnant or even it declines also. And fourth is depression. So when we say depression, the economic growth continues to drop while unemployment rather rises. So, and also the production plummets. So consumers and businesses find it hard to secure credit, and trade is also reduced. And of course, bankrupt starts to increase. So that is what happened during the depression. So consumers' confidence and investment levels also will drop at this particular stage. And next is the trough or trough. I don't know how to exactly say this one, but just bear with me. So in this period, it marks the end of the depression, which is, of course, leading to an economy into the next step of recovery. So, and of course, the last phase or the last stage is recovery. So, when we say recovery, in this stage, the economy starts to turn around, and so the prices will, how would say, the low prices spur an increase in demand. So slowly here, the businesses will be recovering. So the employment and production starts to rise again. And so lenders start to open up their credit to the coffers. And so this stage will basically end, or it will actually marks the end of one's business cycle. So there. So those are the 6 business cycle: expansion, peak, recession, depression, throw-in or throw, and then recovery. Now let's move forward to another topic, which is the types of economic environment. So when we say types of economic environment, these are the microeconomic or the macroeconomic. Then, of course, we have to distinguish these two. So when we say microeconomic, the microeconomic part means focuses on the recent economic environment and also the effect of location on business and performance, whereas the microeconomic part means focus on the broader or spreader economic environment rather, and the world economy as a whole. So there are basically factors that would help us identify if it is a macro or if it is a micro. Okay, so the macro factors includes the following: employment and unemployment. Also, there is income, there is inflation, there is interest rates, of course, tax rates, and then currency exchange rates. There is also saving rates and consumer confidence levels, recessions. Micro factors includes the following also: the size of the available market, the demand of the available market, and also there is competition and availability and quality of suppliers as well, and also the reliability of the company's distribution chain. So like how it gets its products to the consumers. So while companies actually often cannot control the economic environment, but they can evaluate the economic conditions before choosing to enter into a particular market or industry, and then they may also pursue other strategies. So those are the two types of economic environment. Now let's move forward and talk about the international economic environment. So these are finance system, trade system, and monetary macroeconomic system. Sorry. Okay, so when we say finance system, guys, this is something to do with the international. Okay, so it's like this. It is in an international level, obviously. So the international finance system explains and researches the spread of money over the international financial markets and also the impacts of the exchange rates. Now, when we say trade system, this basically studies products, goods, and services all over the world boundaries, and it makes some policy to spread up its trading system. Now, in monetary macroeconomic system, this is a factor research capital and macro flows all over the world. So again, these are the international economic environment system, finance system, trade system, and monetary macroeconomic system. Now, we will be talking now the challenges of economic environment. What are the challenges of economic environment? Okay, so the challenges of economic environment are the following. We have China, which is basically leading the economy as of the moment in a great competition with the United States. And then we have politicalization of global economy and also poverty, inequality, and insufficiency. And of course, the greenhouse effect. So when we say China economy, well, China's rapid economic growth exceeded the pace of institutional development. And so there are actually important institutional and reform gaps that China needs to address. So they have to address these issues in order to ensure a high quality and sustainable growth path. So the role of the state needs to evolve and also focus on providing a stable market expectations and also a very clear and fair business environment, as well as strengthening the regulatory system and the rule of law to further support the market system. Now, given its size, of course, it is important to the regional and also to the global development issues. So China is, of course, we all know that it is the largest emitter of greenhouse gases. So with per capita emissions now surpassing those of the European Union, although slightly below the OECD average and well below the United States, and its air and water pollution affects other countries. So the global environmental problem cannot be solved without China's engagement. So moreover, okay, maintaining the economic growth at a reasonable levels has important spillovers for the growth of the rest of the world economy. So that is China economy. Now, let's now talk about the politicization of global economy. And so when we say politicization rather of global economy, the income of the international negotiation is no longer greeted merely because a result has been attained. So the assignment of authority to the international institution is contested and requires justification. So the measures of EU institutions to save the Eurozone cause resistance within both the countries that provide the credits and the countries that also receive the credits on the condition they reduce state spending drastically. So the right to justification, according to Force 2010, is now also demanded from international institutions. So the international institutions are challenged by the numerous so-called anti-globalization groups such as ATTAC, so it's ATTAC, so governments from emerging powers and by the resistance organized group at national levels against the perceived undermining of democratic sovereignty. So, for example, in the referendum on European integration, it's like this, such activities are not alone in focusing attention on the international institutions and treaties, but only part of the current discussion on the international institutions is concerned with opposition and resistance. So many transnational and non-governmental organizations and even social movements call instead for stronger international institutions in order to satisfy the need for the regulation. So for example, basically many environmental groups advocate a central world environmental organization and the drastic intensification of climate policy measures at the international level. And also, they are clamoring for the strengthening of international development policy. So many governments in the North and also in the South also aim for a stronger regulation. So for instance, of financial markets, both sides of the coin, that is the protest against projected or existing international institutions, and also the increased utilization of the international institutions. And this involves the negotiations about them all, which is to achieve the preferred policy goals. Now, for us to have a better understanding on these negotiations that transpires, we will learn more of that one as we will be discussing about the international foreign relations and the international foreign laws. Okay, I mean the international laws, IL, and international foreign relations or international relations, IR. Okay, and with regards to the issues concerned, we will be tackling that one a lot of that particular topic when we will discuss module 5 lesson 5, and that is talking about the sustainability of sustainability referring to globalization. So I hope that you will always focus on every discussion that we will have, because the things that we are talking here are actually will be repeated and will be amplified later on our series of discussions through the different lessons that we will be tackling. Okay, so going back, let us now talk about poverty, inequality, and insufficiency. So when we say poverty, inequality, and insufficiency, well, almost all over the world, right? Many countries are living under the poverty line. So there is no proper system and capital to improve them. So Even if inequality and insufficiency of the products and working system, they are not developed. So it is a great challenge for all of us, and of course, it's a great challenge for globalization as a whole, because the purpose of having globalization, as one of its claim earlier, that it benefits everyone. So if it benefits everyone, how come that there is still poverty, inequality, and insufficiency of the goods and products and services that the poor countries are currently suffering? Okay, so there you go. Now we will move forward to another challenge, which is the greenhouse effect. So when we say the greenhouse effect, its effect is now an important discussion all over the world. So economic environment is totally affected by this. So this greenhouse effect, again, we will tackling more of this as we will have our current issues, and also as we will discuss a lot of staffs when it comes to the sustainability being brought about by globalization in module 5. So there. Now, to summarize everything about the market globalism, we will answer this question: what is the importance of studying global market and the economic systems and its environment? Well, of course, it is important to study these things because it will provide us an increasing awareness of one's country's political policies and economic system. And second is that learning this system of improving relation through an appropriate communication. And lastly is that we will be able to identify, okay? We will be identifying the problems and issues, as well as we will be implementing possible solutions and other necessary developments that would definitely benefit each one of us in the entire globe. So there, I hope you were able to understand everything that we're talking here. And then if you have any questions, just feel free to ask during our synchronous class meeting. Thank you for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, please stay safe, everyone, and keep yourself healthy all the time. Thank you once again, and God bless.
Make sure to like and subscribe my YouTube channel. Make sure to like